Good morning, everybody. Heath Angle here for TGI Sports Talk's Sunday Stream of Consciousness, and it's likely to be just that today. Went out and played some sim golf yesterday, and it was a little longer day than I would have liked to have been. We got some stuff to talk about today. Listen, we welcome everybody. We're live on Northeast Streaming Sports, simulcast on Let's Talk Sports, certainly on TGI Sports Talk page, my homepage. It's on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We welcome everybody who views us on those venues, and watch us later. This show lately has really been flying through the viewership, guys, after the fact. I mean, we've had some really good numbers in live viewers. And that's important to me because the comments drive this show in my mind. You're my co-host, as it were. But afterwards, I mean, these groups have been doing some great jobs with commenting on it. And I go back, and a lot of them disagree with me. And I love that. It's fine. But it's a lot of fun. We're going to get into a bunch of stuff today. Put the comments back up here. Who's here? Joe Russo? Joe Russo. Good morning, Joe. Sorry I said your name wrong there. New viewer that I don't remember. So welcome to the show. If you've been here before, sorry. But I'm glad you're commenting. And feel free to stay and add your comments through the show, Joe. We're going to get into some stuff today. We'll talk about the great Willis Reed. And he died this past week at 80. I talk a lot about leadership and heart of teams. And I want to make sure that we give Willis his due today. So we'll do that. We're going to dive into all the college basketball. The madness continues. Florida Atlantic into the Final Four, not even ranked ever in their history before this year. And there was talk if they did not win their conference tournament, they may not even made it, which would have been unfair, which goes to my vlog I did this week. Check that out. But we'll talk about the games yesterday in the Final Four. And, I guess we'll try to talk about we'll talk about the entire Elite Eight since we haven't had a chance. We'll get into Major League Baseball, my final thoughts on the WBC, go through some Major League Baseball news, some injuries. Luis Severino hurt again. Talk a little bit about the Cubs rebuild if they know exactly what the hell they're doing. And then we'll just kind of wing it with some of that other stuff. We'll talk some NFL. There's some signings and some injuries. We'll talk a little bit about the quarterback pro days. And I've got some very strong feelings about these 4 quarterbacks at the top of the draft. Or top of the draft, the quarterback list anyway. We'll talk a little bit about the NBA if we have some time. Down to the wire. There's only 6 or 7 games left in the regular season. Knicks not playing well again. Got some problems internally. And then we'll see where we go from there. But we'll talk about anything you guys want today. This is Stream of Consciousness, and we will jump around. Good morning, Rick Sherlock. Good to have you with us. Good morning, Joe, again. Glad to have you with us that first time. Alex Simpson is back with us. Good to have you. CA, our resident dart champion under Excalibur Iron Force. Good morning, CA. Good to have you with us. How about them? Listen, Alan, by the way, your bracket is in worse shape than mine. Oh, God. I can still win this, the TGI Sports Talk tournament. Believe it or not, my champion's been out in the second round. I've still got enough maximum points to get there. Now, everybody'd have to lose all their games, I'm sure, ahead of me. But I'm in 4th place, guys. That's how bad we've all done. And good morning again. Joe and I are having a good morning fest here. So good to be with you guys, as always. A little dreary here in upstate New York in the East Greenbush studio. But it's been a fun weekend of sports. What are we going to start? Listen, we'll talk about Willis Reed. I'm going to talk about the NCAA tournament first. I don't want to miss Willis Reed. We'll probably wait a little bit, maybe in between the college basketball and the baseball talk. We'll get into Willis Reed. But guys, we can jump around as we need to. By the way, the Owls. I talked about the Owls. They beat. Who they beat? Good grief! Already escaping me. Kansas State yesterday. I said this team, Joe May is not long for this school, because you don't have runs like this at Florida Atlantic and not end up with a bigger job. It's coming. and it may come as soon as this year. We'll see. Texas Tech still looking for a coach. There'll be some other coaches, jobs that will come free. I'll take a look at that in a second. But FAU also, in tournament times, tournament news. I guess it's not tournament news. It's news for me because, I mean, besides some of the bracket pools, there's a survivor pool that I get in every year where you can pick one team, just like football. Every day of the tournament, you can pick one team and you can only pick that team once. Well, FAU, there was 300 people in this tournament, almost. It was worth about $6,300. FAU has cleaned out the majority of that 200, and there's 6 people left after yesterday. I'm not one of them, unfortunately. I went down on Tennessee against FAU on Friday night. That's how I know, Friday night. That's how I know this so well. So they have wiped out at least half of this field, probably more. So I don't. Did I see the clip of the Memphis player punching the Bowling Green player in a handshake? I did not see it, Rick. Obviously bad manners. And the women. And we'll talk a little about the women. I was going to catch everybody up on the women bracket after last week's commentary, which didn't go well when I shared the conversation with my wife after our conversation about women athletes. I felt it ironic, or not ironic, but fitting that I at least shared the brackets. And by the way, there is news there, as UConn and Gino Auriemma are not going to be in the Final Four for the first time since 2007. So, and again, so to your point, Rick, I mean, it's only a matter of time as the talent level gets better, the attraction to the sport gets better, more people paying attention, and the sport grows and such, that the women are going to start acting like the men. And it's sad because women, as a rule in my life, well, I shouldn't say that's not all of my life has been involved with civilized women. It is now. But, oh, my God, I'm going to give myself so much trouble again today. I'll see if I can find the clip. Maybe we'll play it if I can find it. CA's been very, very boisterous about his dart career lately, and it looks like Let's Talk Sports, by the way, is going to be having a podcast regarding, because darts is huge in the UK, and as you know, Dan Harris is based in the UK, even though probably 90% of the shows that he has brought to his network and produces and does himself is about U.S. Sports. There's a lot of soccer, obviously, but darts is huge in the UK, and he's going to start promoting that a little bit and having a podcast. So CA's beaten 3 world champs. Just watch the best player in the world beat the current champion. Well, I will tell you, CA, I don't know if I can put it on the screen here, but you have me hooked on this app right here called, was it going to load up? Hang on. Darts Club. Probably doesn't come up too good on the screen because of the lighting. Can I turn it? This is an addictive freaking game on my phone. Sit there playing it for freaking hours mindlessly. I know it's not the real thing, but it's fun. I don't know how I got in darts for so long again. I apologize. We're going to go on to the basket. Let's get into the basketball a bit. I want to get your guys' comments on what you've seen. UConn has been, since first half or halftime of the Iona game here in Albany. They played right here at the Pepsi Center in Albany, if that's what it's called. Now, no, I'm sorry, it's not called the Pepsi Center. That's about 30 years ago. The Times Union Center here in Albany. They were losing at halftime, did not play well. Iona played a great first half. Rick Pitino said it was the best half of basketball they played since he'd been there. But since that point, UConn has been on a mission and just destroying people. Absolutely destroying people. Texas, though, on the other side of the bracket. So UConn gets in. Let's see, what have they done since we chatted last? All UConn has done since we chatted last was destroy Arkansas, who played very well and had just knocked Kansas out, but they kept them away from the basket and driving to the rim, driving to the hoop, like they did against Kansas, because Kansas' interior defense was really lacking. UConn didn't allow that. They made them shoot the basketball, which Arkansas can't do. And they ended up beating them by 23. They beat number 3 Gonzaga last night. I mean, they didn't just beat them. They were up late in this game. They were up by 30-plus points. They ended up winning by 28. UConn stuck with them gamely in the first half. UConn looked like they were going to pull away a couple of times. Pretty sure there was a 3-pointer at the buzzer to put them ahead 7. And they just got totally steamrolled as they started the second half. UConn's playing great. Andre Jackson, the Albany Academy graduate right here locally, and also from, as Rick mentioned on the Mac and Jack and Jim show this morning, from his hometown, which, well, it's not your hometown, is it, Rick, really? It's where he lives. That's where Rick lives. I'm not sure if you said hometown now or not. Our hometown is Perth, even though you lived in the town of Amsterdam, I think. I don't know. It gets confusing, right? But Perth was just outside Amsterdam. Andre Jackson from the small city of Amsterdam went to the small school of Albany Academy, but they kind of recruit basketball players. That's their thing. They always have really strong teams here in upstate New York. And I probably turn this music all the way off. I still hear it playing. So they played Wake. Andre Jackson is a great player. You saw last night. This kid is not a superstar. I don't even know that he'll play at the next level. It's possible he will. But he doesn't. This is a guy who doesn't score a ton, but he does everything you need from a kid like that. He does everything else. He rebounds. I think he had 10 assists or 10 rebounds last night, and 9 of the other. 9 points. All over the court. Tremendous defender. And he's not their best player, but he may be their most important player. I can tell you that right now. So something to keep an eye on. Oh, shit. MVP arena. Thank you, Drew. Maybe if they stop changing a damn name every 5 years. It's funny. I think the Pepsi Arena was the very first name, if I'm not mistaken. And I was there that night when Frank Sinatra opened the Pepsi Arena. Proud to say that. He was drunker than a skunk, by the way. Just an FYI. Oh, what do we got here? I got a few things I missed. I'll be joining Mac with protesters in front of your house. Now, I have not disparaged the women yet today. So don't be replaying last week's tape. And I really don't think I disparaged them. Just to pick up this conversation again, because this is our stream of consciousness show. Last week, I said simply, the best women could not beat the best guys. I don't think that's in any sport. I don't know. Oh, geez, I was going to say something that would really get me in trouble. Maybe darts. Sorry, CA. I don't know. I'm probably not in that. But the best women against, lower level competition of men, yeah, they can beat them. So I'm not telling you any, we have the argument all the time. Could the worst pro team would beat the best college team in basketball and football? Not so sure of that sometimes, but it's likely. It's the same kind of argument here. They just can't get there. You can't get to the same elite level that the elite men can get to. You can't. It's impossible. I know I'm digging the hole again. I feel the dirt being thrown on me as we speak. Good morning, Anthony. You threw away your brackets. I'm done with March Madness. You know what? By the way, the ESPN, or not ESPN, it's on ESPN, the TGI Sports Talk brackets, I'm in 4th place. That tells you how bad this is. My winner, the only team with a winning chance, a team to win the tournament, is Rocky Top 723-7, who I do not know who that is. It might be Robert Butler. I'm not sure. They right now have 650 with a maximum of 1250 if Texas wins. I can get to 740. I've got 500. I'm in 2nd place without a winner. I've only got one team left playing. That's Texas. So I could still win this if Texas if Texas wins it all. Here's the thing. There's no way I can beat Rocky Top, because if Texas wins, I'm sure to get to 740, I need Texas to win it all. Oh, no, they need to win. I only got them one more game. They win one more game, and then Rocky Top loses all his. I don't see any way I can catch them. So anyway, just being in 4th place right now shows you how bad me being in 4th place. When I lost my entire South bracket before the Sweet 16, it kind of tells you how bad we all went. So anyway, welcome, Anthony. Good to have you with us today. CA, they've been failing at that for years. Just look at the WNBA can't support itself. Now, listen, I'm not talking about people wanting to see women's sports. And Bill, oh God, who's the comedian? Bill Burr, very funny, but he does a great bit on this WNBA, women wanting equal pay and stuff. And I'm not going to dive into it because I'll get myself in a lot of trouble. But go Google Bill Burr, WNBA jokes or whatever, because he's a wonderful stand-up comic. He tells it like it is, man. He's not terribly politically correct. And if you like that thing, as I do, I love to watch it. Alec says darts is the only game he gets better with after a few beers. It's a good point. There's our MVP Arena comment again. Good morning, Drew, by the way. Good to have you with us again this morning. CA Alec, what'd I say? Oh, you know what? I got to get to the eye doctor because my progressives are getting awful, especially on the computer. So, Alec, sorry about Alec. Sorry. If I call you Alex, it's just, what I do. I apologize. Joe, what do you got? Kansas State players and coaching players going to Florida Atlantic locker room after the game to wish them the rest of the way. Very class act by Kansas State. And, oh, gosh, what's her coach's name? I know I have it here. Hold on. I do this every time. This guy I've talked about so much this year, and it's just kind of out of my brain right now. Jerome Tank, done a great job. He's a great story. This team is a great story this year. And I think them going to the locker room after the game showed a lot of class. I have to agree with you there, Joe. Good point. We're talking about Andre Jackson as a junior with another year of eligibility. He'll definitely be back. I had this Dave Guyette somewhere. I was doing a show, and he asked a question. He thought if I thought he'd be going to the NBA this year. Again, I'm not sure that Andre Jackson's going to the NBA. He'll get a chance. I don't think he'll get drafted. And again, this year he's not going. He's coming back for his senior year, I'm sure. And when he comes out, I gotta feel, unless he just goes ballistic next year, I don't think he'll get drafted, but I do think he'll get some opportunities to make teams. Because remember, there's only 2 rounds in the NBA draft now. CAA can't create equality through inequality. You can't female judge themselves by their own. Oh, why can't female judge themselves by their own standards? Males do. Well, that's their problem, I guess. Again, I don't want to go down this whole road again. No, my progressives are progressing the wrong way, Drew. I noticed actually playing golf yesterday. I had I hadn't played golf in my progressives before. I usually put my contacts on and just use my far vision, and I probably should have yesterday. But the computer, it's really the computer part of it, and that's what's really hurting my. So there's 3 levels, as we know. If you wear them, you know. All right. Anyway, back to the tournament. What else we got yesterday? Yesterday we had, as I said, UConn just blows out, Gonzaga. Mark Few, again, did a great job. This was not his best Gonzaga team. I think getting his team to the Elite Eight was a pretty good accomplishment. I buried them early in the year. Lots of prognosticators buried them early in the year. They played really well late. They won their tournament. They won the regular season conference championship and the tournament against a very good St. Mary's team, which I thought they would not do. So great job by Mark Few. Again, I'm telling you, one of the most underrated coaches in the country. And I was on a show the other night with Nick Bodkins and Johnny Cruz, and they kind of, and I didn't get a chance to rebut this, but they kind of were remarking, this is before they played Thursday night in the Sweet 16, that Mark Few and Gonzaga, this is where they stall out every year. Well, it's not where they stall out every year. They've been to the national championship game twice in the last, I want to say 6 years, or close to it. They lost them both. But, there's no shame in that. And it's not like they fail here. They've gone to the Elite Eight a bunch of times in Mark Few's 24 years. So, and by the way, this is Gonzaga in Northwest United States. This isn't a blue blood. Well, it's becoming one. This isn't a blue blood college basketball program. Sorry, Nick and Johnny. I didn't get a chance to get into this. I'm not trying to bring it up where you don't have a chance to rebut it. I just didn't get a chance to rebut it that night. CA, illogical motivations for wealth and power aren't exclusive to politics. Well, that's true. You're absolutely right there. Where else did we go yesterday? FAU we talked about. 79-76 over Kansas State. We talked about the class act that Joe brought up about Kansas and Coach Tank going into the visiting locker room, winning locker room, to greet Coach May and the Florida Atlantic Owls. Listen, this team's in the Final Four for the first time. This team was never ranked in the top 25 before this year. And this is a conference where I thought, I did a vlog the other day where I'm tired of watching the West Virginias, the Mississippi States, Maryland's. There's a couple other examples I gave in the vlog. Not really coming to my mind right now. Maybe there's some others I would throw in there. Not the automatic winner. Keep those automatic winners for the one bid leagues, but stop going 8 or 9 deep in these conferences where teams are under 500. Forget about their power rankings and forget about all this other nonsense. They don't win games. I don't care who they're playing. And to disparage like UAB and North Texas in Conference USA should have had consideration to get in this tournament. Both really good basketball schools. And I would take either one of them over West Virginia or Mississippi State. Even Arkansas, who I'm high on, 8-10 in the SEC. You need to stop. These teams do not go far in a tournament. They never go far in a tournament. Never. You're more likely to get San Diego State's and FAU's. Now, they weren't at-large bids. They won their automatic bids. But you see those teams. George Mason's back in the day. VCU. VCU went from the first four to the Final Four. The only team ever to do it. You never see one of these teams that are 8 or 9 seeds. And if I'm wrong, Alan, because I know we argue about this a little bit, tell me I'm wrong and point out somebody who is an 8 or 9 pick, not an 8 or 9 seed, but a team who finished 8th in their conference, finished under 500 in their conference, and advanced to the Final Four or even the Elite Eight. Elite Eight, my memory could be failing me, but I'm telling you, there's nobody in the Final Four with that resume. Nobody. So why am I taking these teams in when I can take the second place team in some of the mid-majors or the first place team in some cases where they got beat or upset in their conference tournament? I should take those teams. Much more interested in something like that. So anyway, there's my little soapbox today. Watch Friday's vlog. It's only 10. Well, I say it's 10 minutes. I can never seem to go 10 minutes. So anyway, San Diego State plays a really, really strong game against Alabama. I'm sorry, who did they beat? San Diego State, yes. They played a strong game against Alabama the other day. We're going to get them today against Creighton, who played, again, extremely well against who did they beat the other night? It wasn't Creighton. Princeton. Princeton tried to get in this game. Princeton gamely fought in this game, kept it close enough where they could have made a run near the end, but they just didn't have. And again, it's hard for them because now by this time, you're not sneaking up on anybody, so it makes it more difficult. But again, a well-coached team, nothing to be ashamed of from Princeton here. It's a good Creighton team. Picked to win the Big East and got off to a really horrible start and came on late in the year. I think they get beat today. I think you get San Diego State getting to their first Final Four as you did FAU. And other than UConn, if UConn gotten beat, it would have made this a very interesting Final Four, because you would have had a Final Four, no matter who wins today, full of teams that have never won a national championship before. That would have been a lot of fun. So, my picks today. So we've got Kansas and FAU in on opposite sides of the bracket. We've got Creighton playing against San Diego State today, and I'm going to take San Diego State. So you'd have an interesting bracket there, semifinal of FAU against San Diego State. So one of them is guaranteed to get in the final if my prediction comes true, but that hasn't happened a lot. In my bracket, I picked Texas. Texas is playing really good basketball, guys. You know, everybody's on UConn and how well they've played. Well, they've won their games by 20, then 25, then 5. They beat a really good Xavier team by 12, and it wasn't that close. They were beating this team by 20 at one point. Xavier scored some garbage time baskets to cut it to 12. But they're catching a really hot Miami team. Miami was awful for 95% of the first round game against Drake, again, here in Albany at the Pepsi / Times Union / MVP arena. Sorry, MVP, if I'm not giving you the proper credit for your advertising rights to the building. You know, send me some cash and I'll be happy to push you as well. I think Miami's got a really good shot here. Again, similar to what UConn was doing. It took them a little longer because they didn't turn it on right out of the gates in the second half of game 1. But they thrashed a good Indiana team out of the Big Ten by 16. They dismantled Houston. Houston really, they fought back a couple of times, but in the second half, Miami controlled this game. They're so athletic. They defend. Everybody can shoot foul shots, which is huge in this type of tournament. And they're well coached. Jim Larangara is a great coach, very underappreciated, I think, around the country, and has been for a long time. He's getting up there now. He's in his mid-70s, and he's probably the closest looking coach I've seen to Jim Boeheim as well. I'm going to take Miami against Texas today. Rodney Terry's another coach who's done a great job under difficult circumstances, taking over for Chris Beard. He's now, I want to say they're 20-7 or 22-7, 22-7, I think. Since Chris Beard got fired, very difficult circumstances. And Rodney Terry, by the way, still doesn't have the full-time gig here because they think they can go after a John Calipari or some big name. Texas, lock up Rodney Terry. If he does not sign here, he will get another job. He quit a head coaching job to come here and work for Chris Beard at UTEP. But I do think Texas falls to Miami today in an upset. And you'll have then you're going to have UConn and Miami, a very interesting matchup. Former Big East team against the current Big East team. Miami and those leaving the Big East for football reasons is what really caused the demise of the original Big East. But I think Miami wins this game. I don't have to make my. I do need to make my picks today, right? Because by the time we meet again here, we'll be talking Wednesday night on the College Sports Huddle about this a lot. But I'll pick my Final Four picks right now. So I've already got FAU against San Diego State, and I'm going to take San Diego State to get to the final. And I'm going to take Miami to get to the final. So we're going to have a 9 against a 5 in the final, and we'll talk more about the final as we go forward. What do we got here? Joe Calderon. Good to have you. Thanks for the kind words, brother. Good to be here, and good to have you with me. Joe does a lot of stuff, guys. Check him out. You want to watch high school sports, you got to get with Joe Calderon's efforts there. If you like high school sports here locally in the 518, Joe does some tremendous work. Joe, if you're still with me, put a link up to your page or your website, whatever you want to send me, and I'll certainly put it on the air here, and we'll post it to the TGI Sports Talk page. So thank you for the kind words. Joe's been in sports for a long time, guys. From Broad Albin, New York, Pizza Supreme, some of the best pizza you can get. Love pizza. And I miss Pizza Pete. Good man, Joe's dad. Played some cards with Joe here. Pizza Pete, rather, a few times at the Snowed Inn. And Robbins. In a few places. And Joe's been in the business for a long time. He was the sports director at, what was it? Time Warner News, I think, at the time. So Joe's been around, done a lot of good work, and now he's really done a great stuff for college sports around, not just college football, but college sports around the 518. So great job, Joe, and thanks for stopping in. Morning, Kenny. Good to have you with us. Kenny Gifford joins us from the mountain. Probably a little chilly up there this morning. When I was in high school, our country passed a point, more people in law schools than practicing law. Well, lots of chaos at the expense of humanity over other life forms being created. CA has gone on a very existential movement in the last few shows, but it's good stuff. I understand where you're coming from there, CA. The eyes of Texas are upon you. Yes, I'm going to probably warrant a protection of my own here before we get done. 30 for 30, Pizza Pete. Everybody loved Pizza Pete, right? Good man. Thanks for being with us, Joe. We'll get your stuff up on the page and check out his high school work. It's awesome. What else is going on in college basketball news today? We know about the coaching signings. I talked about guys like, I don't think Joe May, I think, is definitely going to probably make a move out of Florida Atlantic. I'd be shocked if he was the coach here next year. Dusty May. Sorry, I said Joe May. I thought it was Joe May. Dusty May. He's one of the guys that I can see making a move out of here. Now, people would also say, well, what about San Diego State coach, Brian Dutcher? But Brian Dutcher's been there a long time. I don't think he's moving on. I just get a sense he will stay there. They've built a pretty good program. Steve Fisher, if you remember, when he moved on from Michigan, went out to San Diego State, built a really strong program. This is not, their first trip deep into the tournament. It's their first trip to the Elite Eight, obviously. I think they may have made an Elite Eight with Steve Fisher, but Steve Fisher, as he started to get into his later years coaching, he became more of a CEO, and Brian Dutcher did a lot of the coaching, and so does these other guys, and he kept basically his whole staff stayed when he left, which has really helped the program continue its continuity. I don't think he's going anywhere, so I don't think that's something that I would look at as far as him moving on. Anything's possible, but there's some other potential movement besides just Dusty May. One guy I would look at, by the way, is the head coach at Boise State. They had a really, really good year this year. He may be somebody who's in line for one of those Pac-12 jobs, maybe Cal, which is a tough job, but they've had some good success over the years. Fox did not coach well the last few years there, but he could possibly. That's Leon Rice. Excuse me. Is the coach at Boise State. Excuse me. Still some lingering effects, but we're doing much better. Thank you. So I would look. I'll get back to your comments here in a second. I promise you. I would keep an eye out. Oh, did I just close out my window? I did. Damn, how did I do that? Here, let me do this. I want to give you some of the jobs that are open. Whether some will come open, we'll take a look at that in a second. But some of the jobs that are open right now in D1 basketball, still some pretty good jobs. We already know some have been filled. Rick Pitino going to St. John's. Very polarizing figure. Some people are in love with this. Some people aren't. You know what you're getting. You're getting a great basketball coach. Are you getting a great humanitarian? No. But you're getting a great basketball coach, and he's got a good shot at turning that around. So maybe schools that a Dusty May might consider. Temple's open. probably a step up from FAU, playing in the AAC. George Mason, no. Texas Tech, interesting for Dusty May, or they may try to stay in their region more, but a possibility. Providence filled with Ed Cool. I'm sorry, Georgetown filled with Ed Cooley from Providence. I think he will revive this Georgetown franchise. I think this program has been down for a long time, and I think he'll do it. Kim English will replace him at Providence. Nice hire to our George Mason. I think they won 22 games this year, which is always an accomplishment. Army American. Cal is a place you could be looking, as I mentioned, for Rice or for Dusty May. Ole Miss hired Chris Beard. Listen, it's funny how these guys let themselves get used in my mind. We talked about this on the Sports Huddle, right? Chris Beard going to Ole Miss, I think, is just a way for him to rebuild his reputation. I didn't think he'd get a chance this quickly, but he is. And he'll use that as a stepping stone. And there's no way Will Wade, formerly of LSU, who was fired after all kinds of malfeasance going on there, and he's going to face a suspension, that the school hired him, had a press conference. Actually, here are the sequences with Will Wade at McNeese State. Hired, press conference, pep rally, suspension by the school. Obviously predetermined. So, there's not a lot of big, but Texas Tech is probably going to be the big one. In California, I would say the big schools left. Now, there could be some other teams that move on from their coaches. There's going to be coaches that leave and need to, to find a new the coach. Then they need to find a new coach for that program. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on all of that and update you as the off season progresses. FAU, by the way, first number 9 seed in a tournament final 4 since 2013. And that's really about it. I did want to look quickly at the women's bracket, as I promised I would. UConn out of this tournament for the first time since 2007. The number 1 Gamecocks, who I don't know if they've lost a game this year, have they? We'll see it in a second. Let's just take a look at the bracket, and we'll get through this, and we'll go on to some baseball so Drew can pipe in here. Here we go. There's my women's bracket. All right. So we have the Elite 8. Nobody in the Final Four yet. Elite 8 games being played today and tomorrow, it looks like. So today's games, Miami, the only school with men's and women's teams in the Elite 8. They're going to play LSU. That's a 9 seed against a 3 seed. That's today at 7 o'clock if you want to watch that, Kenny. And also Louisville against Iowa. Iowa is the 2 seed, Louisville the 5 seed. South Carolina, the number 1 seed in the entire tournament, against number 2 Maryland in the other game tomorrow. And I think I missed one other one. Virginia Tech, number 1 in the Seattle region, against number 3 Ohio State. You notice one thing you don't see in the women's tournament. Maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. You don't see the Florida Atlantics. You don't see the San Diego States. Every year I see the same schools. Now, some fall back. Tennessee's program's fallen back since Pat Summitt left, and tragically she's left us entirely on this earth. Notre Dame hasn't played as well as they have in the past. But these are, you don't see these small schools getting up and getting a shot to win in this tournament. I mean, the smallest school that probably won a tournament in the whole bracket was South Dakota State beating USC, and that was only a 9-8. But I don't see the upsets the way I see them in the men's. So maybe, again, my argument about the best women can't beat the best men, I mean, I don't even know. I think there's a disparity between the best women and the not as good women, where in the men's leagues, those teams rise up and can beat them because experience and things like that overcome talent, pure talent that has no experience, or raw talent, I should say. So maybe that's the case there. And I'm diving into the weeds again, I know, and the protesters are lining up outside my house, right outside the studio. But other than that game, you don't see the shockers that you see on the men's side. And I don't know if that speaks to what I'm talking about, or maybe it's totally unrelated, but we'll see. Anyway, what do we got here? Texas has to jump on the Longhorns Texas has to jump on the Longhorns bandwagon. It's the only team that wins. Well, TCU got to if you're talking about Austin, Texas, and the University of Texas, then I get it. If you're talking about the state of Texas, then they've had some success through the years. Baylor's won a national championship. Texas Tech has got to a championship game. TCU got to a championship game in football. So you may be talking about just the University of Texas, and if that's the case, you're certainly right. I can't make an argument you're not. He knows how to recruit. I'm not sure who we're talking about there as I moved on, probably too far from that comment. You might be talking about Gino. You could be talking about anybody. And the laugh makes it sound like it's a new girl every week. I don't know where that comment comes from either. But it's an interesting one anyway. Let me see. Anything else? Let me just check real quick if there's anything else I want to cover here. Creighton's a good story, by the way, too. They've never been to, I don't know if they've ever been to an Elite Eight, but they certainly have never been to a Final Four. McDermott's a really good coach, and they could do damage if they beat FAU today, or San Diego State as well today. We'll see how that goes. Some other college news that I'll just throw out there. Eric Montrose, UNC, North Carolina University legend and a current radio announcer, did play in the NBA a bit, was diagnosed with cancer this week. So our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family, and hope that this all turns out well. And so it's something that they got early, and it's something that they can overcome. So Eric Montrose, a really good player with UNC. Men didn't have the small schools win until certain rules changed. Not sure where that's relevant. Rules like what, Kenny? I mean, the rules are, if you're talking about NIL and transfer portals, that exists on the women's side. This isn't exclusive to the men. So, I mean, I would say probably the men in these smaller schools probably have better basketball facilities than the women do. They do as overall. We already know that. And they have better treatment when they're traveling, better treatment in the tournament. That was a big deal here last year, the year before, if you remember. So, anyway, let's move on to some baseball. But Kenny, please follow that up, because I'm not really sure which rule changes you're talking about, because the only ones I can think of that have really been major over the last few years are but Drew's had his comment ready for baseball already. Hang on, I got Kenny's answer here a little bit. Oh, he didn't. That's not the answer. Same question. All right. Well, Ken, if you have that, I'll certainly interrupt the baseball part to kind of go revisit that. But I don't think there's any rules that are that much different between the two. So we'll get to Drew. Let Drew start us off here with our baseball topics for today. Guess we'll start with the injury news. Severino. It was inevitable. I said this. How long have I said this? I kept hearing after they signed Carlos Rondon that this is the best rotation in baseball. I went through on the Major League Baseball show, and maybe we'll do it today because a lot of you guys don't necessarily tune into that on a Friday. we'll go through the rotations in baseball. I think maybe we'll spend some time on that. Because I said with the Yankees, how does that make them the best rotation in baseball? Because Rendon, I mean, if he continued what he was doing the last 2 years in San Francisco, maybe. But even if he stayed healthy, and by the way, him being healthy was not a guarantee because he spent most of his career in Chicago either not pitching well or hurt. And coming to New York is totally different than pitching in San Francisco. They don't resemble each other as far as the pressures of playing there, even a little bit. And then you got Severino. I said Severino's an injury issue at any point in time. He's got a lat strain, another injury we never used to have. What else you got here? Ryan Hoskins out for the season with an ACL. He is getting a second opinion, but I'm not sure why. I don't see any way that it's going to give him any other result, based on what I've read, that he's going to be out for the season. Who else you got here? Wainwright, bagged up. I think he's not going to – he went on the IL. But look at – Wainwright's also about 50 years old, right? So I exaggerate. Injuries are going to happen to those types of guys. And again, don't be blaming the WBC guys because that could have happened in spring training. And Robert Suarez has an injury to start out the season as well. Look, this happens every year. Injuries are part of baseball. It's a grind. That's why, and I know, Kenny, you're going to say play 80 games. 162 games is a grind, and it's part of what baseball is, and it's part of what makes it great. And you got to be deep enough, and it's hard to be deep, right? With the contracts that are out there, and it's not a hard salary cap. I shouldn't say that. It's not like the NFL. You pay a luxury tax if you're willing to pay it, then you can be deep. But teams don't go that deep. The Yankees' rotation is not that deep. I mean, Herman was already the fifth starter, and I want to see Clark Schmidt in that role. None of them are that deep. And are the Yankees the best rotation in baseball? If all those guys stayed healthy, maybe. I don't know. Good pick for Hoskins for Rick. True. Just kidding. No, it was a good pick that you don't know he's going to get hurt. I was kidding him that he should sue you for that. And a lawyer. Hoskins is probably done. Hoskins is probably done with the Phillies. His contract ends this year. Probably. It's very hard to negotiate. He'll probably sign. My guess would be coming off the injury, and this is what happens often, unless there's dumb teams out there. He'll sign a 1-year deal, make good deal somewhere to prove he's healthy. And believe me, Ryan Hoskins is also a guy that I don't think has ever reached the potential that the Phillies or other people thought or had for him. He's a good player, and by all accounts, talking to this Philly sports guy Friday and this morning, he's a really good influence in that locker room and dugout. But on the field, I mean, he's never been, an over-the-top superstar. He's a productive player. Yankee. Now's the time I will start to pay attention to these games. I know Drew and I have had a debate whether, exhibition baseball is as important. I shouldn't say as important. The games are important to development of young kids and getting guys ready to play. But as far as importance, they mean nothing as far as the outcomes go. That's why I never get into spring training. I'll watch these last few games. But even teams, they still aren't playing a lot of veterans because they don't want them to get hurt, like Hoskins or Wainwright at all. But now's the time to start paying attention to this. And by the way, the WBC, we're going to talk about the WBC one last time because this tournament showed especially the semifinals, at least one of the semifinals and the final showed why this is such a great tournament and why it's so important and why the players and the fans love it. And that's what matters. And it's promoting baseball all over the world. We're going to get into it one last time today. And I will say this, as we go on. I don't know if Neil's with us because I know Neil Bush likes to rip Ohtani. And all during last year, I said, Ohtani, look, Judge should have been a unanimous MVP in my mind. Ohtani doesn't even play for a winning team, and winning teams, part of winning is part of supplying, an MVP performance in my mind. But there is no better baseball player, talent-wise, than Ohtani. To do what he did in the final, to play an entire game. Now, he didn't play it in the field. He played at DH, but he had at least four at-bats. Made some really had to bust it on the bases a few times. And then he comes in and he's able to pitch and lock down the ninth and shut it down against one of the best players in baseball, including his teammate, who also happens to be his teammate, I should say, Mike Trout. It was exciting baseball. It's unfortunate in the early rounds so much it was played so late. Dylan Bundy picked up off the scrap heap by the Mets via major league deal, joining his former Baltimore management associates, Showalter and Epler. I don't know that Dylan Bundy. We'll see. I mean, listen, Buck knows how to get the most out of some of these guys and gets them to perform above the level. And they putting in positions to succeed, right? And not ask them to do things they can't. He could be a guy who helps the Mets out. The Mets losing Diaz hurts, but I don't think it hurts as bad because again, there's no guarantee, especially with relievers. You can say, well, you look at his numbers last year. Well, relievers very rarely, unless you're Mariano Rivera, put up back-to-back numbers that are just off the charts. They have a lot of peaks and valleys as far as seasons go. And I think you got David Robertson, who's a seasoned veteran and has lots of closing experience. You'll have the ability to go out and pick up somebody before the trade deadline, and that Steve Cohen isn't going to be shy about doing that. So that's all good stuff. But who knows? Dylan Bundy might actually turn out to be a productive player. Where'd we go? Backwards here. Rarely can any university program be successful at winning a championship in football, basketball, and baseball without recruiting in Texas. I don't disagree with that. Texas, one of the most fertile recruiting ground, even for basketball. I would say the two are Texas and Florida, the best two recruiting grounds. That's where everybody goes to get players, right? That doesn't mean there's not good players in the Northeast and the West Coast. But Texas and Florida are the most fertile recruiting grounds for any school. That's where they want to go. That's why the SEC has really gotten good, because they're taking all the good kids from the schools in Florida, and they're not staying in Florida. That's why Florida's been down. Florida State's been down, making a bit of a bounce back now. Miami's been down. It's hard. Plus, you got schools on the rise in basketball like FAU and football like UCF. Kenny, WBC is fantastic because all the players are playing the game for the pleasure to play. Agree 100%. In fact, one of my arguments about I think I mentioned it here last week, that the injury to Diaz, where Met fans and some other MLB fans were calling to end this tournament. It shouldn't be happening. Diaz is selfish. I saw the word selfish many times in comments. Selfish for going there and putting his Mets season, the Mets who pay him handsomely, on in jeopardy. Well, first of all, he was celebrating. I will say he probably would not got hurt if he was in spring training, because you don't celebrate spring training wins unless you're the Rangers. Sorry, Alan. What was my other comment here? Oh, and you've seen people who deride them and say they're selfish for going there and putting their season where they're getting paid by a team in jeopardy. You chastise almost all these guys for playing for the money and not caring. You just care about your contract. And then when they go do something for pride, want to play for their country or the country of their parents' heritage, then they're derided for that. Just shut up. This was good baseball. You saw the players busting their tails out there. You saw them loving it, as Kenny said, for the love of the game and wanting to play for the USA. Let's just use USA as an example, but it happens for every country. The USA on their chest. Listen to Mike Trout's comments, although his comments might be an indictment on the Angels as much as it is a a boost for the WBC. He said he never had so much fun playing baseball. It's good for the game. It's promoting the game in other countries. You got countries that couldn't even make this tournament before, like Great Britain and the Czech Republic, who I think they won a game. Great Britain won a game. I know that. I think the Czech Republic won one too. But Great Britain's got to do something about their uniforms. I mean, stop stenciling. I told Dan Harris on our show the other day, if you know anybody who does uniforms, and they're messaging me right and left on TGI Sports Talk, maybe I should send them to Great Britain. At least get the letters to stay on the. First of all, it looked like somebody had just taken a stencil and put them on there, like a kindergarten stencil kit. And the letters were falling off, for crying out loud. Anyway, that's fine. But all in all, this is a great tournament because it promotes baseball across the world. Chinese Taipei. Australia was really good this year. Italy was good, 2-2. These are teams that didn't normally advance in the tournament. Now, they did a good job, by the way, too, I think, the WBC of going to more like the World Cup, the Soccer World Cup format, where they had 4 pools, and then you advance into the knockout tournament as well. Similar to, World Cup and also like hockey in the Olympics. You get out of your pool, and then you're in a knockout tournament, quarterfinals, semifinals, finals. But those last 2 games, and we'll get back to Major League Baseball in a second. Those last 2 games, for Japan anyway, you watched that Mexico-Japan game. What a great baseball game. Well played. There was a bunch of runs scored, but again, you know me, I'm a proponent of low-scoring games that are good. I don't have a problem if they don't score runs, but I don't have a problem if you score runs. And it's a good baseball game. It was that's one of the best games I've seen. Back and forth. Mexico never gave up. Japan was behind most of that game. Actually tied the game, I believe, went ahead. Then Mexico went back ahead. And then Japan wins in the bottom of the ninth. Just a great, great game. You can't ask for a better baseball game than that. And Ohtani was lights out in this tournament. And the final was just awesome as well. If there's one thing the U.S. needs to do different to win again, they didn't defend their title. They were trying to defend their title. They hadn't played since 2017 because of COVID. They need to get the pitchers to come. They didn't have to beg any players to come. In the past, they've had to cajole players to come and play, and they did not have to do this as far as the position players. Now, the starting pitchers, and it might be their teams keeping them from going, which I totally understand, but they need to bring better starting pitchers with them. We talked a little bit about this morning on the Mac Jack and my window's open. Get a little cold. Mac Jack and Jim show. The negotiations were suspended at the end of the season. I think Nola and the Phillies will get together, but you don't know today. I've thought that about a lot of things over the years. Nola's their best pitcher. I don't think they can afford to lose him. Their rotation's not deep as it is. I don't like their rotation actually past Wheeler, because Walker's going to win some games, but he'll have a horrible second half like he always does. I don't think the Phillies are making the playoffs this year. CA, if the Mets reach their goal, we'll be happy for Buck. Listen, I'm not a Met fan by any stretch of the imagination. I am a huge Buck Showalter fan. Buck got screwed by George in 95. I know it worked out when we hired Joe Torre and obviously had a dynasty, but that team was basically built by Buck Showalter and Gene Michael while George Steinbrenner was suspended. And George actually, when he fired Buck, tried to hire him back. After he'd hired Joe Torre, he went to Buck and tried to get him to come back, but he was already to move on to the Diamondbacks, who weren't even going to play for another couple years. So I will root for Buck, not if he's playing the Yankees, of course. And that's not me having two teams, by the way. I had this conversation on Friday's show with Dan Harris. I don't understand people who have two teams. I just don't get it. And see, I know you mentioned, okay, one in one conference, one in the other, one in the AL, one in the NL. I can't. I have one team. One team. I might have a rooting interest on another team. When Donnie Baseball was managing the Marlins or even the hated Dodgers, I wanted to see Donnie do well. By the way, speaking of Donnie Mattingly, there's a decent chance, I shouldn't say a decent chance. There's a chance we may be going head-to-head with him this year. If they get off to a bad start, because it's World Series or bust for the Blue Jays this year, and if they get off to a bad start, Snyder is going to be looking right next to him on the bench is Donnie Mattingly as his bench coach. And if they get off to a bad start, don't be shocked if Donnie's got that job. True. Anyway, WBC is essentially the baseball Olympics since they were dropped by the Olympics. It wasn't – you're not wrong, but that isn't really why they formatted these games. They did want world competition, but they were really looking to have a World Cup type competition. Now, again, it was an Olympic sport for a while. Not sure why they dropped it. Don't even care why they dropped it, because this tournament is much better than anything the Olympics ever put out there in my mind. But you're not wrong, I don't think. I just don't. I think there's some truth to that, Drew. But I just think if it was still the Olympics, I think you'd still have the WBC. I did read the article about St. Francis. Very telling for the mouthpiece who believe they're running something. It is a sad situation for the student athletes. For the student athletes at St. Francis, it's certainly a sad situation. If you don't know, St. Francis administration decided to dump all sports here this past week. Listen, this isn't necessarily a historic sports program in any sport that I'm aware of, but it's still, a Division I school with kids with dreams. Now, the fortunate part, and this is where the transfer portal comes in, and they won't have to sit out a season going somewhere else. So this is one of the good things about the portal situation now. But it was a good article. The CA did post it on one of our. I'll go back and find that, and I'll put it on the page, CA, and check that out. Drop baseball, but keep badminton. This is from Kenny, who doesn't love baseball. I think it's Major League Baseball that he has more of a problem with. I know Kenny said he loved the WBC. The Olympic Committee, I don't know what they want. I think they want sports that are, less than mainstream sometimes. I think they saw the success of the X Games, not that badminton would fit the X Games profile, but I think when you look at some of the sports in the Olympics today, I think they looked at the success of the X Games and said, we need snowboarding, we need this, we need I don't even know skateboarding is. I don't even know what half the things are in the Olympics anymore. I hardly watch the Olympics because they're pro athletes today. I wonder what Drew would think of your take on the Padres and Dodgers from this morning on the Mac and Jack show. So my take, and Drew, I do want to do our show this week, so I got to give you a call. I'll try to call you this afternoon. We might be out looking at some houses. I don't know. That's still up in the air. But I got to call you, and I want to set something up because I want to do our preview show, and I don't know what night I've got available to do it yet, or whether you're going to be available. And I don't know if we have to do it. I don't know. I'd like to do it. I'm thinking about Thursday, but you and I can chat about it. Anyway, Rick's referring to in the West, and this is right now. I mean, I think that on paper, the Padres are the best team. And the only thing that can derail them, I had the Padres getting, you're going to love this, Drew. I had the Padres and Brewers meeting in the NLCS again. I guess I didn't learn my lesson last year. Maybe I'll change that tune before we do our show. But I said the Padres were the best team in the West on paper. Maybe the best team in the National League on paper. They got an underrated pitching staff. And the only thing that can derail them is chemistry. Team chemistry. And I felt the Dodgers were going to struggle. I think they'll still have a decent team, Rick. I don't want to leave the impression I think they're going to win 70 games like the LA haters that sometimes come on my shows. But I think they're going to take a step back. The Lux injury hurts them. They've moved on from some veterans and replaced them with some strange. I mean, you move out Justin Turner because you think he's too old. Boston signs him to be their DH, and he. By the way, I saw a picture of him the other day, and he is messed up from that hit by pitch. But they bring in JD Martinez to be the DH, who's also 35 something and on his way down. They move out Bellinger. I mean, they're counting on some kids to step up, and if those kids step up, they'll be fine. Their pitching's really good if it stays healthy. Can Urias stay healthy? Can Kershaw stay healthy? They're already Gosselin, I think, might already be having some. I don't think it's going to keep him out by any stretch. And then you got to worry about the bullpen. So I think the Dodgers will be okay, and the Dodgers might even make the playoffs. But I think they're going to struggle this year a little bit more. I think they're going to take a step back. They're not winning 107 games. I don't think they're winning 100 games. And I think if they fall in, they may fall in the 85 to 90 range. It's quite possible. The thing they have going for them is the rest of the division is not very good. Diamondbacks are a bit better. Drew, very good catch there that Kenny spelled badminton correctly. Thank you for pointing out what a nice job he did there. Now it's possible spell correct. Sir spell check helped him, but he's putting that Perth education to work. Me, I think I excelled at everything at Perth except for English, math, and pronunciation. You know, none of the stuff that I needed in life. Drew Ellen Ehrlich Paul is helping. She's not a Perth grad. She's also a teacher, so he's got an advantage. He does have a built-in advantage for sure. No, we're not going to the mountain. No, and we're not moving necessarily now. We're just starting to we need to downsize at some point. You know, I'm not interested in being in my mid to late 70s, 80s, however long I manage to make it on this earth. Hopefully, 30 plus years. I'm not interested in having a home that I live on 3 floors, counting the basement and washing clothes and I hang out in the basement a lot. I want to be on 1 floor, and so does my wife. We want to be, we don't need to be there now, obviously, but we want to be prepared. So we're looking, and it could be 2 years from now. It could be in a couple of months if something you can't pass up comes up. Never know. So we looked at some interesting places. Lots of options. Maybe we don't go at all for 3 years. Who the hell knows? 5 years. I love this house. I may not never leave. You might have to carry me out of here in a pine box. Padres having bullpen issues. I get that. Listen, well, anybody, when I say the thing that will derail the Padres is chemistry, I can't predict injuries. Any team can be derailed by injuries. If they stay healthy, which is, again, that's a big if. Josh Hader started to find his form, and he's still one of the best relief pitchers in baseball, and I think he will be this year. So, again, they've got some injury issues now, but they've also got the bats to overcome any issues if they have to for a short period of time. Well, now you misspelled your wife's name, so that really kind of defeats what the kudos that you just got, Kenny. You left the A out of your wife's name. So anyway, he says that has put Keith in timeout after bashing women last week. I don't know how I bashed women. I only said the best wouldn't beat the best. That's all I ever said. Oh, God, I get myself in so much trouble. Dodgers are definitely vulnerable, but they always find – that's a good point. They always find a way to bring in players that succeed, and they do bring guys from their minor leagues. I think losing Lux hurts a lot, I think, especially given what they were trying to do this year, right? Having to replace a good portion of their infield, two-fourths. Who says two-fourths, by the way? Actually, it is 3/4 of their tournament of their infield now with Lux being out. Makes it tough. Now, they got depth. They got some guys who can play different positions. And we'll see. You're right. I think the Dodger management does a good job of keeping that team afloat. They've won that division 11 out of 12 years. They're doing something right. CA, going to research what's going on with old property. The downtown moves have always involved dark money and other agendas that aren't resulting in the betterment of our society at all. I'm not laughing at you, CA. It's just you've actually become the Kenny Gifford of this group. As Kenny dials it back, you ramp it up. Jordan Walker makes Cubs opening day roster. I did see that. I'm not sure where he. Let me see something here. Is he? God, where's my clicker? Jesus Christ! Can pain in my ass, right? Where is that? St. Louis. I just want to see. I wanted to look at their depth chart real quick. It's too far. Oh, there he is. He's right now. They've got him to backup DH to Nolan Gorman. Just ESPN. They're not always that up. Oh, I'm sorry. Left field. He's starting in left field. My bad. Dylan Carson going to the bench, a good contributor last year. I know that there was a lot of talk about Lars Nootbaar starting in center field. That's not happening. O'Neill's going to start there. They need these kids to hit better than hit last year, I think, right? O'Neill's a nice player. Got to hit more. Oh, Lars Nootbaar's in right field. Edmund needs to hit a little bit more, I think. I'm not crazy about Brandon Donovan being the second baseman, I don't think, but we'll dive more into this stuff, too, when we get into going through them. Fractions. I need some 2/4. It works out to roughly 50%, if I'm not mistaken, right? I mean, I could be off a couple of percentage points, but I think it's roughly 50%. Clint Frazier did not make a team's roster, I believe, as of right now. It doesn't mean he may not still end up somewhere. But listen, Clint Frazier, another guy whose head was bigger than his talent. Always thought he was better than he was. Thought he should have been playing. When the Yankees finally got tired of giving him chance after chance after chance, he badmouthed the organization when he went to the Cubs. Shut up, Cliff. Just go out there and freaking play. It's Cliff Frazier, but that's okay. Because I obviously make a lot of those errors. But he needs to shut up. The guy's not good enough to play between the ears, at least. Maybe he's good enough tools-wise and talent-wise, but between the ears, he's not good enough to play. Just not. And baseball's as much, Kenny, you know this as well as I do, having played the game as long as you did and I did. Baseball is a lot about what goes on between your ears. You don't have to have the best talent in the world. I didn't. And I was able to succeed on a much smaller level than what we're talking about here, obviously. Because I played smart and I knew the game. And worked hard and maximize what I had. And guys don't do that. Too many guys like Cliff Frazier don't maximize the talent that they have, never get it together upstairs, and they cheat themselves. Listen, everything affects my speaking. Well, I can't look. I'm looking at one line. I can't seem to. I had a little too much beer yesterday. I didn't plan on having that much beer. Played, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I played some sim golf up in Amsterdam yesterday. It was a lot of fun. We had a few beers while we played, and I don't like the sim machines, though. Kenny, you can help me out with this. I swear to God, you'll get away with more on the golf course, bad shots, right? Because I think the sim is looking at too much. The simulator is looking at too much stuff. It's looking at how the ball and club meet, right? And how it hits the screen and the spin and this and that. And I swear to God, there's balls I hit. They went like 220 off the tee. And if I was on the golf course, they'd have been 240 or 250. Or maybe more in a couple cases, because I did drive the ball well yesterday. But I really think it's unforgiving because it's looking at so many of these metrics, right? And not just the final result of what the ball did. I could be totally wrong. I don't know how these things are programmed to work, but they're very hard to use. I haven't played on a sim in 20 years, and I struggled. Putting's very hard. Anyway, I digress. And then we went to Frog Alley for a couple of beers and, stopped and brought my wife home some dinner. It's cold. I see the ball, catch the ball, throw the ball, hit the ball. It's not hard, right? At the end of the day, it's a pretty simple game. G to G. Gotta go. Oh, man, I'm saying 2 out of 4. I'm spelling out. Gotta go. CA, great having you with us as always. Good luck. But if you're playing darts today, good luck, buddy. And don't forget to be on the lookout for that dart podcast on Let's Talk Sports. I don't know if you can play. I guess you could. I don't know who's going to stop you. I didn't see anybody playing barefoot there yesterday, but it's entirely possible. Opening day is Thursday. Ton of roster moves on the way to get down to 26. Yes, the next starting tomorrow, you're going to see moves probably every day, right through Thursday. And I want to try if you're wanting to do it, Drew. I think maybe Thursday night might be the night we do it. I can't do it Monday. I could do it Tuesday, but I got to prepare too. So I'm thinking Thursday. I've got an interview that I have to do at 5:30 with Chuck Foreman, former Viking great Chuck Foreman, which I know that Rick will love. But then maybe we can do it from 7 to 9 or something. I'll talk to you. I'll try to give you a call today or tomorrow. Hitting off a mat is easier than grass, and simulators are basically used for teaching a swing path, in my opinion. I agree. It's definitely easier than hitting, but I just think the way it reads the ball off the club, it's penalizing you if you aren't perfect in your swing path, as you say, and the ball striking. So balls that I might hit really good, but not with the best form, don't carry the way they would have if I was outside on a real course. That's my only point. I could be totally wrong. I just didn't play very well. So, what else do we have going on Major League Baseball here, guys? What you guys tell me? What do you want to? We got to get into. I do want to talk about Willis Reed, which I think we're going to do right after baseball. We talked about the injuries. One team, and we'll talk about this definitely a lot. One team that I still don't get, and I don't know where procrastinators. That's me. You're right. It's affecting my speech as well, Drew. Prognosticators are putting the Cubs yet, but there are Cubs fans and there are baseball fans who think this team is going to challenge in the Central, and I don't see how. They put together such a ragtag team. This started because I keep hearing people telling me Cody Bellinger is going to be both the comeback player of the year and the MVP of the National League. On what planet? This guy isn't hit. This guy isn't hit in how long? Where's his stats? 210 he hit last year. Here's his averages the last 3 years. 210, 165, 239. 1230 RBIs and home runs. I'm sorry, home runs and RBIs. 1230, 1036, 1968. He's had one OPS over 650 the last 2 years. Is a change of scenery going to help 27-year-old Cody Bellinger this much? Again, he could come back and be a serviceable player. I don't think he's ever going to be the Cody Bellinger he was. They got retreads all over this. Marcus Stroman is their number one starter. James Taillon, nice pitcher who can give you, 5 innings, 6 innings. Kyle Hendricks, hurt right now, old. Drew Smiley's your 5th starter. You're not going anywhere. Their closer's Michael Fulmer, nice pitcher. Not on this team. Yan Gomes, catcher, and Tucker Barnett sharing that job. Eric Hosner hasn't been good in years. Let me check his stats. Maybe he had a good year last year. I don't think he did. They were trying to unload him. The Nationals didn't want him in the Juan Soto trade. He ended up going to Boston, hitting 244. 8 homers, 40 RBIs, 272. 12 homers, 65 RBIs, 269. 9 homers, 36 RBIs. That was a shortened season. He did it 287. I mean, his last good year was in 2019, and I don't know, that wasn't a great year. This guy hasn't been, in my mind, a first-rate player since 2017. I don't know why I'm picking on this team so bad. I like to pick on the Rangers. If Allen shows up, we'll look at their roster. Nico Horner might end up being a decent player. Patrick Wisdom's got some possibilities. But he's not a young guy. He's 31 years old. Hit for terrible average. He's got some pop. I'm sorry. Dansby Swanson, great player. Great signing. Not going to help you win games when you got the rest of these guys playing around you. Ian Happ, nice player in left field. Cody Bellinger, don't think he's recovering. Suzuki, I'm not really sure that he is going to be the next great Japanese star. He only hit 262 with 14 home runs last year. And Trey Mancini, a great story. His best days are behind him. So where do people get off telling me that this team is going to challenge in the National League Central? I still like the Brewers because I love that pitching staff. Love that pitching staff. Wade Miley a little weak at the 5th slot. I get that. But they've improved their batting with William Contreras at catcher. They should be better with Jesse Winkler. I think he'll bounce back off a bad year. Keep waiting for Christian Yelich. But, look, I don't need Christian Yelich to be Christian Yelich if some of these other guys step up. They don't need to be that much better. I will say this. Come trade deadline, Brewers, go out and get yourself some offense. What do we got here? Maybe change Wednesday for college. Wednesday's college. Well, I can't do it this week because we still got a lot of. We still got a lot to talk about. And that show's really, really well watched. So I don't know. We'll come up with a day. Pro sports should have term limits so we don't have to watch them fail. Term limits. Cubs are nothing but exactly, Drew. I don't know. Listen, and maybe I'm listening to the wrong people, but all winter I've heard people talking up the Cubs. Talking up about what? Rick, we went to help Keith promote his shows and not put them down. Baseball is too slow for the kids today. We want to help Keith help promote his shows, not put them down. Well, then kids today, here's my problem. Baseball is a slow game anyway, right? But it shouldn't be 4 hours. And we don't need pitch clocks, and we don't need artificial means to speed up the game when there's rules in there. I mean, Rob Manfred was commenting the other day about the WBC and probably adding these rules. The fact that, we had rules there, but they weren't being enforced. Whose job is to do that, Rob? You and your umpires. Excuse me. Now, again, is it going to speed up the pace of play? It already has. I get it. But still, there are downsides to this. You've seen guys get hurt a little bit because they're rushing to get back in the box so they don't lose out. You're going to see games decided on this. I saw an article from, I don't know who it was, I read this morning, that we should shut up. It might have been Sherman in the Post saying we should all not worry about games being decided by the pitch clock because NBA games are decided by the shot clock. And it was a good innovation, and it made sense. It wasn't put in to speed up games, though. It was there. It was put in there to actually improve the games from a playing standpoint because guys held on to the ball trying to beat George Mikan and the Lakers. Two different sets of scenarios. You shouldn't be losing. And if you lose a game, that was his point, because the shot clock was violated. That's not the same thing. Artificial rules is to encourage more base stealing. Artificial rules to improve batting average. Instead of teaching people to play the game correctly, again, between your ears. Hello? Anybody awake? Let's just put rules in. That wasn't the American thought about the O's last year. Wasn't that the American thought about the O's? No, it wasn't. I'll disagree with that 100%. They didn't bring in a bunch of retreads at all. I can't think of a retread that was on that team. In fact, they traded maybe their best two players at the time to get even better. They had a lot of kids that they brought up through the organization. Correct me if I'm wrong, Drew, but most of their really good players are homegrown. And yes, the Cubs have a few of those that they're using. But when you look at, I went the wrong way. Damn it. When you look at, shit, what the hell did I do? Let me go back here. I want to get back to the Cubs roster. When you look at the Cubs, Kenny, it's totally different than what the Orioles did. They didn't bring in 1, 2, 3 journeyman pitchers, Stroman, Taillon, and Smiley. They didn't bring in a journeyman closer. They didn't bring in a journeyman catcher. They didn't bring in a journeyman first baseman. They brought in a really good shortstop. They didn't bring in a washed up center fielder. And they didn't bring in a DH who, again, a nice story, Trey Mancini, and he can still hit a little bit. And in the friendly confines of Chicago, maybe he has a good year. But to me, this is totally different. And Drew can comment. I think it's totally different. So there you go. Sorry, Drew, didn't mean to steal your thunder, but it is my show. So Drew agrees. Again, look at all the guys they brought in here. Not the way to go about building a Major League Baseball winner today. Now, maybe these are just bridge players and they plan on working their kids in, but I'm not so sure that this farm system is one that is about ready to spring a bumper crop, let's say. CA's back. Reception issues for callbacks. Heck, it's Sunday. Why are they calling? Well, calling for what? What do you work? I know, work never ends. I can't wait to stop working. Freaking Drew pisses me off all the time. I'm still got. How come nobody told me I had my college thing up there? I'm ready to move on from baseball. Any other stories in baseball? Before I move on, I'll talk about Willis Reed before we lose time, and we'll get some NFL, and we'll talk about whatever else we have time for. Promise you. I was looking here just at the headlines in The Athletic. Don't care. A lot of great stories in The Athletic about the WBC and how good it was. We talked about Nola calling off the trade out of the contract negotiations. He hadn't pitched well this spring either. Maybe that had an effect. I can't say this case because I want to make sure Drew has a chance to rep my pronunciation. Mets set down Mark Vientos to the minors. They also optioned out Brett Batty, who they think will be. They think Brett Batty's going to be major league ready maybe this year, both offensively and defensively. Whether they need him with Escobar over there is a different story. But injuries happen, and you saw him come up last year. Maybe a little bit overwhelmed, but I think this kid's going to be a productive player in the major leagues. We talked about Wainwright. I think that's it. I think that's all I got. So, we'll get some comments, though. Don't make me go. We'll do this next week. I'll get back to your Willis Reed comment in a second, Drew. Time to numb the mind. Alan, I think we'll do our World Series favorites now. In fact, you can even do it when I'm going to assume Drew and I are going to do the show. We can even it'll be live. So I think we did it live, didn't we, Drew? I don't know if I did it live or not because we need to get through stuff in 2 hours and it can be challenging. So we may have recorded it. And then we posted it. So you can give me your picks right now if you want, Alan. I planned on probably doing that next week though, but throw them out there. I know you think Texas is going to win. And now that you're here, before I move on, I might look at the Texas roster. No, I want to get to Willis Reed. Braves versus Guardians is my pick. Good pick. Guardians, you good young team. Right now, and I may change my mind, I have the Astros repeating. They're still the best team in baseball. Nola versus DeGrom opening day. Well, he's still got some time to get hurt, so let's not count on that just yet, Alan. I didn't hear you mention a sucker punch by Memphis player on a Bowling Green. Rick brought that up earlier. I didn't see it. Let me see if I can find the story here. I had the women's. Well, you know what's funny is they apparently ESPN doesn't even see it as a big story. Who was this against? Memphis. Let me look this up. Then we're going to move on to Mr. Reed. Memphis. Isn't it great to watch me type? By the way, speaking of punches, make sure you watch the Kermit Washington interview I did, and it aired this week. We'll keep replaying it. It's always in the archives on TGI Sports Talk or Let's Talk Sports. It was a very interesting hour with Kermit. Certainly an interesting guy with a lot of highs and lows in his life, and he talks openly. You get his perspective. I'm sure his perspective is probably different than some other people's, but it's his perspective, and I think it's only fair to look at it. I'm going to check this out right now. I need a short version here. So, well, you guys, I wish I should have looked this up on the other computer where I could share it, but. So, again, I talked earlier about the fact that as women get better, they also take on the worst traits of the men. All right, I want to see this. So the game is over. Bowling Green wins 73-60. They're in the handshake line. Oh, WNIT, not the. Yeah, I wondered. I didn't see Bowling Green in that. I didn't even know there was a WNIT. Are you going to show me? Can we move on? There's nobody in the crowd punching anybody. Here we go. Oh, she knocked her right down. Oh, that's just awful. That's awful. I want to see the replay. They stop. They're talking. And then she didn't hear that hard, but. Well, you know what? If they'd won, she should have been suspended. That's for sure. That's awful. That's an awful pick. Awful. You always. Here, let me just stop this because I got sound going on it. PTI guys always talk about the teams of the youth. The Knicks were the team of my youth, and I will agree with that. Yankees and Knicks, but the Knicks were the winning team, right? I didn't root for any winning teams when I was a kid. They all lost. Patriots, Yankees. Well, the Yankees had some decent teams, but they couldn't get past the Orioles. The Yankees of that era are badly underrated, I think, in a lot of cases. They had some good teams. But the Knicks were the winners, winning in 70, and I'd say it's kind of sad or ironic, I guess, that Willis passes on very close to the 50th anniversary of the Knicks' last championship in 1973. So it's very sad to see that. Drew's comment was Willis Reed was my basketball hero. I think he was a lot of us, for sure, when he was a kid, along with Bart Starr, Ed Giacomin. Ed Giacomin was a great goaltender for sure, and then announcer later on. Juan Swoboda, interesting. A very eclectic group of people there. Willis Reed, though, listen, Willis Reed epitomizes everything that I always say about sports and what's needed on championship teams. Willis Reed's a great player, don't get me wrong. But I don't believe for a second Willis Reed was the best player on that Knicks team. I think Frazier was better. He made all these guys better, too, don't forget, though. I think Frazier is better. I think it's very possible DeBusschere was better than Willis. In fact, if you remember, the Knicks didn't win in 72 because DeBusschere was out. Or hurt, I should say. He was hurt badly. Willis was out as well. When they lost to the Lakers, but I think Jerry Lucas stepped up and played center there. But Willis was the heart and soul of that Knick team. Willis was the true epitome of what a leader is. Who doesn't get chills today? And I have to go back and look at the video. Sometimes I come across it because later on at night, I'm famous for going through YouTube videos and seeing what comes up from the 70s. And I constantly come across that chilling, in my mind, introduction but when the crowd realized in Game 6 of the finals in 70 that Willis was indeed dressed, coming through the tunnel and heading to the floor. I still get chills. And people probably don't remember, and I'm sure you guys do, that all Willis did in that game, he played, I don't know what he played, 15, 20 minutes. He only scored 4 points. First 2 baskets of the game. Willis, his patented mid-round jumper, baskets, inspired that team game. Walt Frazier went on to have arguably what might be the best Game 7 of anybody in the history of the NBA. But Willis was the linchpin. If Willis doesn't come out of that locker room, the Knicks have got blown out in Game 6, remember? Willis got hurt in Game 5. They got blown out in Game 6. And it's possible. We'll never know. But then he was never right again in his career. I mean, I got Willis's stats here somewhere. After 1970, his points went way down, 12 and a half a game, 10 a game. Oh, that's his field goal average. Sorry. Sorry, it still went down. 13 and 11 and 11 is last year. I mean, but he was playing in constant pain. His career shortened. They played a lot of minutes back in those days. He was a great player at Grambling, too, by the way. Let's not forget, speaking of college basketball, great player at Grambling. Came here with the Knicks and had to play power forward for a lot of his early career because Walt Bellamy was on his team. Not a great. I mean, Walt Bellamy was an all-star, but selfish player by all accounts. Knicks never would have won with Walt Bellamy playing center. But when they got rid of Bellamy and brought DeBusschere in, I mean, DeBusschere was probably the key cog to that team. But again, the heart and soul of that team, what really made it go was Mr. Willis Reed. And maybe it's I can't decide yet whether it's sad, whether it's ironic, whether it's a joyful thing that his passing comes. It's not a joyful thing when you think it's been 50 years since they've had a championship. But 50 years, almost to the month of when they won their last championship. So again, PTI guys always talk about their teams of the youth, Knicks or the teams of their youth. Yep, we said this before. Captain was the heart of those teams. I said that before. They don't win. He may not have been the best player, but they don't win any of those championships without Willis Reed. I don't think it's a coincidence they didn't win any except when he was there. We got Always Live. We did do it. Yeah, I think you're talking about our show live. All right, we'll do it. I'm thinking Thursday, Drew. Let me just check my calendar a little more. It's getting tough. Kenny, I want to consider playing in a golf tournament or golf tournaments we'll play in a league, but it's hard, especially I'm going all the way to Amsterdam. Work. Best I can be there is, there's days I can probably sneak out and be there by 4, depending on what's going on. But 5 o'clock is more realistic. And then I can't do it Mondays because there's one Monday a month where I got something going on. I could do Tuesdays, but I almost like my Tuesdays. So I got to see about that. Wednesdays, I got the college football show, college sports show. Thursdays, that's where Dan's been setting up my interviews, but I could have him move them to Tuesdays, but then do I really want to do them on Tuesdays? I might have him move them to Wednesdays and just do it all Wednesday, right? I do an interview from 5:30 to 6 and then or 6:30 and then go into my show at 7. I might do that. So if I can do it, Kenny, we're probably looking at Thursday or Tuesday. And I think the league Scott plays in is Thursday. So just kind of, I wanted to throw that out there. I know we got sidetracked on that, but Bowling Green was just welcome to the hood. Welcome to the hood. That was bad. Reed was only 6'9". It's funny. I said this the other day. Every place you see that he's listed at 6'10", there's no way he was 6'10". I've seen places he was listed as small as 6'8.5". And he was playing 6'9", remember? He was playing at 6'9". I should have done my whole vlog on Willis Reed. I don't know how I didn't do that. I had other things on my mind. I did talk about Willis on every show, though. So 6'9", he's playing against Chamberlain at 7'2", Alcindor at 7'4.5". Bill Walton, he really didn't play against, I don't think, that much. Maybe in Walton's rookie year. I doubt that he did. Bob Lanier, all huge guys, man. And Dollar Bill was a great player. That was a team that, again, I don't think you, as far as team basketball goes and moving the basketball, and you see it. I've said before, there's teams that remind me of that. And you see it in college with some of these teams. And I think the Warriors, the vintage Warriors recently did that in today's game, but it's all to do something different. The Knicks move the ball to get an open shot or a layup, backdoor. Now the ball movement is to find an open three-pointer. That's the difference, right? But it's still fun to watch when it's done correctly. And Reed was just a great, great player. Real, what do you got? Who's this comment from? I see you're have it in quotations. Reed holds the distinction of being the first player named MVP of the All-Star Game, regular season, and playoffs in the same year when he accomplished that feat in 1970. He was definitely, deserving of all of that. And again, I don't mean at all in any way, shape, or form to diminish Willis Reed when I say probably wasn't the best player on those teams. Just the cog that made him go. Well, you know what? They all had their roles. And Willis's role was to lead. And Willis being out there hobbling around inspired his teammates as much as him being able to go out and perform at a high level that he did up until 1970. Drew, I mean, at that time he was averaging, roughly 20 points and 14 rebounds a game for his career. And then it takes a dramatic drop after that because of the injuries piling up, knee injuries mostly. And he only had a 10-year career because of it. And when you look at it, you might as well say he only had a 8-year career. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. I mean, I could say he had an 8-year career because 2 of those seasons he played 11 and 19 games. Just, again, golden age of the NBA, in my mind, was the 70s and the 80s when, listen, baseball or basketball has been on the verge of having trouble or maybe disappearing a couple of different times. One was through the 60s. They did too much expansion. This is just my opinion. Too much expansion. I really think those Lakers-Knicks series in 70, 72, 73, 3 out of 4 years they played each other. I think they really helped the game. Then the game went into another malaise when the Knicks fell off and the Lakers fell off in the 70s. And even the Celtics were terrible. Those are the 3 marquee franchises in the league at that time. So they don't have another resurgence until Magic and Bird. So, and now, the NBA is what it is. It's very hard to watch today. Remember the look on Wilt's face and he leaned in on defense and took him out of his game early. Yeah, absolutely. I think that game was over the minute. And again, the effect, it's a great point, Rick. And you go back and if you watch this and watch, the way some people have broken it down on video, you watch the team's reactions. And the Knicks' reaction, I think the Knicks kind of knew. Some of them knew he was going to play. It's been said more and more recently. I mean, there was some doubt, but I think they had a pretty good idea he was going to at least try. I think the Lakers thought he was done. And when he came out, the look on Wilt's face, the look on a lot of those Lakers faces were, I won't say the word. Don't forget the Pearl. It's funny, when Earl Monroe, the Pearl, came to New York in that 70, I think it was during the 73 season, if I'm not mistaken. Where were the Knicks in that year? Was that the year they won? Anyway, it doesn't matter. When Earl Monroe came over here, there was a lot of talk whether he and Frazier were going to be able to coexist in that backcourt because they both wanted to dominate the basketball, right? I mean, the Knicks moved the ball, but Frazier was the guy. He was the point guard. But Earl Monroe, to his credit, in Baltimore Bullets, by the way, that became a very offensive name. That might have been the first name in sports that was changed because it was considered, in a way, offended people. I think it was when they were in Washington that they changed the name. Because I remember the joke was if they wanted to change, if they didn't want a team, because they felt it was too associated with crime, the name Bullets, right? So I remember the joke was if they wanted to if they wanted to disassociate the team from crime, they shouldn't have changed the name Bullets. They should have changed the name Washington. Old joke. But Moreau came here when he was with the Bullets. He was just a playmaker. He was magic before magic. They used to call Pearl Magic. If you ever get a chance, there's a great documentary that Pearl Washington's part of, and it was about historically black colleges and their basketball programs. I don't remember the name of it. I think you can probably find that on YouTube. But a lot of it was about Pearl, and his first nickname was Magic. And he was just a great one-on-one player. And the Bullets had some great teams. Bullets won. Let's see. Bullets, I don't think ever won a championship with them there. They went to the championship game with the Bucks, and I think they got swept. But when he came here, he adjusted his game. People didn't think he could, and he did. And he became an integral part of that championship game or team in the first year he was here, and became a beloved Knick. So absolutely a great job there. So anyway, rest in peace, Willis. You are not going to be forgotten by this show, and I hope you're not forgotten by anybody who pays any attention to history. And again, kids, guys who are watching the show, I say kids, I'm not getting kids. If you're in your 30s, Alan, Anthony, I'm not sure how old you are. Please, when you start watching sports, learn about the history of the sport you're watching. Because it didn't start, and again, I'm not saying you guys do this. I'm just using examples of younger guys on my show. Learn the history of the sport. Because it's important to find out how we got where we are, whether it's good or bad. You know, a lot of good and a lot of bad in the history of every sport. What do you got, Drew? NFL? You want to talk a little NFL before we wrap it up here this morning? Oh, let's see. I got a banner for this somewhere. And we won't put that up. We'll just put news and notes. How about that? What do you got, Drew? NFL moves. Jets still dealing with trying. Listen, here's the problem with this trade. And this might finish up our discussion for today, and then we'll get into some draft stuff and more baseball predictions and stuff next week. And Drew, let me know. What do you think about Thursday at 7? I think that'll be a good day to do it. And I'll message you after the show. The Jets and the Packers both seem to think that they're dealing from some position of strength. Packers aren't. Jets are. Jets and Aaron Rodgers have all the leverage, all of it. Packers have none. They've made it clear they don't want him back, so there's no way this trade falls apart. They can bring him back. They can't cut him because if they cut him, they owe him $50+ million. That'd be great for the Jets because they wouldn't have to sign him to a $50 or $60 million contract. So, and Rodgers could say, and Rodgers is not retiring and walking away from $50+ million. So who holds the leverage here? You could say Rodgers doesn't have any, but he does because Green Bay can't bring him back, and there's no place else to trade him to. Nobody else has seriously said we're interested in talking about Aaron Rodgers. Nobody. Now, and people look at the Jets in a sense don't have 100% great leverage because they don't have a plan B either. I suppose they go get a Ryan Tannehill. They can get somebody on the cheap. I think, whatever. Teddy Bridgewater's still out there, but are you going to win? This is a team that's like a quarterback away. That's a really good football team we're looking at. They are a good, and you should know, watching me, I'm not a huge Aaron Rodgers fan. I'm not any kind of Aaron Rodgers fan. But if I'm the Jets, and it could totally implode and be just a disaster, it's a great move. But the Packers have put themselves in a bind here. They've got to make a trade by the trade deadline or by the draft because they're going to get draft picks. They don't hold all the way. They think they do. They think they can hold the Jets hostage for more and more and more. Well, they can't because they've got to make a move or they're going to have to pay Rodgers $50 million and bring him back to a team that he doesn't want to be there and they don't want him there. That can't happen. That will never happen. That will never work if it does happen. A couple great documentaries on Pistol Pete, by the way, as well, Kenny. You just go to YouTube and put in Pistol Pete and you'll come up with a bunch of them. There's some really good stuff going all the way back to his high school days. Vikings rated an A for free agency, considering they were $25 million over the cap, and they did get rid of a lot of cap space. Yes, I mean I'm not crazy necessarily about some of the players they brought in, Rick, but to get themselves under the cap before the draft, I think was obviously important. And this is still a team that I think can compete. Listen, that Central Division. Sorry, showing my age again. The North is not that strong. I look for the Bears. If somebody had a really good free agency season in that division, it's the Bears. Watch out if they get themselves a running back here, a real good running back. They could be tough. They got some weapons for Josh Fields to throw the ball to. Their defense is improved a whole lot. Now, again, on paper, you got to do it on the field. But that division is there for Vikings. I think the Vikings, Lions, and Bears may fight it out, and Packers will regress to last. He's not playing in the XFL. The other way he's going to play in the XFL, well, I don't really know how that would work, to be honest with you. He can't I guess he could go there and collect his money if they cut him. But if he doesn't show up to camp and they haven't traded him, he'd have to retire, which means he doesn't get paid. Now, they can call his bluff, and he can't just retire and then go sign with the Jets. He can't do that. Or he could go sign with the XFL. And Aaron Rodgers isn't playing in the XFL. Nobody should be playing the XFL. Team chemistry is really important. No, listen, you know how I feel about team chemistry and having a leader, and I know there's some danger here, but the Jets don't have a better option. Jets have, and winning has a small window. And the Jets are ready to win now. That's a defense that's ready to win now. I think they got I think they've got a really good supporting cast around a quarterback, and they're a quarterback away from winning. There are no real other choices than to roll the dice and gamble here. What's the worst that can happen? They don't win. They're going to win if they don't bring them in either. So they take a shot. I wouldn't know. Normally, and I think you know this about me, Kenny, I would not advocate this normally, but this is a kind of a unique situation. O.J. Howard replaces Waller. Listen, I think Waller coming into the Giants. I think the Giants have done a pretty good job too. They still probably need a wide receiver, but I think they're counting on Robinson to come back. The rookie who got hurt last year to come back and be productive. I think they think Slater will be. Shepard they re-signed, and if he's healthy, and you had Waller, if he goes back to where he was 2 years ago, that's a pretty good, much better group of people for Daniel Jones to work with. Singletary, but Houston, it's a shame. I think Singletary is is a very productive back to have on a team. I think, but he's going to get lost in Houston. He's really good on a good team. I would like to see the Patriots sign him. He's a good third down back. If they don't want to use Stevenson on all 3 downs, and he was productive in the passing game, but he still had some issues as far as being in the right place at the right time. But I think Singletary would have been a really good team player on a good team, role player. Miles Sanders and Thielen in Carolina, they're probably going to pick C.J. Stroud number 1. That's what it looks like right now. Again, I think there's some question about, in my mind, who the best quarterback is there. I still love Levis. I think none of them, well, C.J. Stroud or Levis could maybe play year 1. I'm sorry, not Stroud, Young. I think C.J. Stroud is going to be a bit of more of a project. But I just don't understand the Anthony Richardson stuff. That's what I don't understand. Finishing this up. Nice signing by Buffalo, getting Damian Harris for sure. Hardman going to New York. Nice pickup there again, another nice piece for the Jets. He wasn't the best player on the Kansas City Chiefs, but you go back and look at these Chiefs teams over the last 4 or 5 years, and Hardman is always making a big play in a big game, always. Hooper to Vegas, Elijah Moore to Cleveland. Elijah Moore kind of talked his way out of off the Jets, unfortunately. And I didn't see Dalton Schultz signed with Houston. Interesting. That's not a bad signing, but again, that's a guy I would like to see the Patriots pick up. I know they picked up Jasinski. I'll say his name wrong, whatever. If I'm not looking at it, I can't say it. If I'm looking at it, I can't say it. I would like to see the Patriots maybe consider Dalton Schultz, but he probably, I don't know what he signed for, but probably priced himself out of their Jets. Don't know. Haven't seen Waldo. Maybe he's at the NCAA, getting ready to go to the NCAA Final Four. Jasicki. Yes, thank you. Now, he's not a bad pickup for the Patriots, especially considering he's replacing Jonnu Smith, so the bar's not very high. He fell out of favor with the Dolphins, but he had a good year a couple of years ago, and if he can revert to that, and I don't believe he's making the kind of money they paid Jonnu or Hunter Henry, so. Anyway, guys, I think that's about it for today. If you got another quick comment, we can certainly put it up there, but let me start up we're going to wrap it up music. I want to thank everybody for coming in today. We had a great conversation. You guys carry these shows so well for me. The comments are exactly how I want to play this, and you guys are my co-hosts. I just say it's my show, but it's your show too. And I like to have fun doing it, and I hope you guys have fun as well. Be watching what's coming up this week. We've got obviously we've got a couple more big college sports huddle shows with basketball, and we'll start to look at some baseball, CA, if you're with us, and we'll also start to pivot into the new college football season as well. And we've also got you'll like this, Rick. Thursday, our one-on-one interview was with Matt Robinson. That'll air Thursday at 6:00. Matt Robinson, former Georgia Bulldog, so we talk a lot about Vince Dooley, and he had some pretty good Georgia teams that he played on. Went to 3 bowl games: Tangerine, Cotton, and Sugar Bowl. Became a 9th-round draft pick with the Jets, and he talks very candidly about how he felt he was better than Richard Todd, but he understands why his career never went as far as he would like it to have. And he is very honest about why that is. So, great conversation with you. Comments here before I go. Best show ever. No. I'm sorry, Carlos. Good shows. Always keep us posted with the baseball show. And Drew, I will. Once I nail that down with Drew, I will. I'll program. I'll post it like I have been posting everything at a time. And you'll see the schedule. You do get notified, I believe, when I schedule these shows. So if you aren't, let me know. But like and follow the show. Share it with your friends, guys. Invite everybody in your friends list to TGI Sports Talk. I keep asking you guys to do this. You may not know how to do it, and I could probably show you one day. But anyway, do it. And we'll continue to grow and have some fun. Guys, Keith Nagel from TGI Sports Talk. You guys have a great Sunday afternoon. I'll catch you on Wednesday night. Bye-bye.